What is up, guys? Welcome to the Move Makers podcast. My name is Alex Wayman. I am here with my co-host, Victor Bustos, and this is our second episode. So if you tuned into the first one and you didn't get bored with our banter and conversations, welcome back to episode 2. In this episode, we had a really great opportunity. This was the first time we interviewed somebody, and we interviewed actually an old friend of mine who is a real estate agent, mogul tycoon, also has experience in the music industry. He actually sold me my first condo quite a few years ago, which was a nice touch in the conversation. But he knows everything about real estate, and he has been through the weeds, building from the ground up, the grassroots approach of getting into real estate, which is probably the hardest thing for new real estate folks to do, is figure out how to navigate this industry. Victor, what was your favorite part of today's episode?
For me, he made me realize that it's very important as a buyer trying to find a real estate agent to pretty much be pre-approved, ready, and understanding your limitations on how much money you can spend. It's not fun when you're house hunting for, let's say, $600K house, but in reality you could only afford 450. So a pre-approval is very important, and he kind of just describes why it's important, scenarios and whatnot. But that was pretty much like the number one thing that came to me. So
yeah, having that insight to know where you're at financially, especially within an industry like real estate where money really does matter. And I don't want that to scare away people. I don't want people to feel like they can't get into the industry. Actually, Brock talks about it today, how there are many ways to get into real estate, and there's never a perfect time and there's never a not perfect time, meaning like there are deals everywhere. You just have to know how to navigate them, which kind of segues into my quick tip for today, if I may, Victor. The quick tip, and I kind of learned it from this episode with Brock, is take the time to really evaluate where you are in your life. I'm going to start with the example of finances. I remember when I was in college, I was afraid to open up my Chase account because I didn't want to see how much money I had. But in order to be involved in something like real estate, you have to be transparent with yourself about where you are financially, but bigger picture, where you're at in life. Like, is now the right time for you to pursue your creative venture, to pursue your entrepreneurial venture? Do you have a new family? Like, maybe you need to spend more time with the family instead of pursuing some sort of side business, right? Where are you at emotionally, physically? How's your health? How are your finances? Take the time to do a full assessment of where you are today in order to approach any new venture with the most level-headed and, I don't know, best put together version of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, numbers can be scary, but at the end of the day, you have to run the numbers to see if it works or not. Really, like, that's the best way to kind of look at it. So
yep, having that realistic viewpoint. So
yeah.
And guys, if you have questions throughout this video or this episode, please put it in the chat below. Victor and I will be monitoring, and we'd love to engage with you, answer any questions you have. Also, be sure to follow us on YouTube. We did, again, just get launched on Spotify and Apple Music, so find us on there, the Move Makers podcast. It's got green text on it, which, I don't know, Victor, we should talk about our branding at some point and maybe come up with something better. But yeah, thank you guys, and let's get Brock on in here. Brock, welcome in. How's it going? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share my experience and hopefully inspire somebody today.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. So I think we should maybe start talking about some of the real estate stuff, because I know real estate's a very interesting topic right now, between how high the interest rates are, between the questions of how does somebody get into the real estate space. Victor, I know you had a couple questions about the real estate side of things. Did you want to throw something out there?
Cool. Yeah, I'm very involved now. Alex is as well in real estate. We kind of talk about rental properties and stuff like that. So I'm excited to ask you a few questions, Brock. Like, number one is, what made you get into real estate, full-time or part-time, with the addition of what made you choose your current office or brokerage that you work for, because in from what my understanding is, you interview them to see if they're a good fit for you rather than they interview you to join their office, something like that. If you could elaborate on that.
In a sense, I guess. So I got into real estate just almost 5 years ago. Background in construction and the service industry. I'd worked in restaurants since I was 15 years old, so I can date myself, but it was a long time ago. And at some point, I was for myself, my body was getting beat up in the construction industry, and I just kind of thought, what would be a good way to melt those two together? Because the service industry is dealing with people and being able to build good relationships with people. And then the construction industry is a way that I know around a home. I may not know everything about it, but it was a good, pairing fit, so to speak. And that's how I looked into real estate at the time and got into it. So
that's probably pretty huge, having that construction background, because you can approach properties with an eye that not a lot of newbies have, right? Because you've been in the space, you actually know what to look for in like the foundations of a building. Like, I guess, a lot of our listeners are sort of young, starting out, trying to figure out how to navigate something like real estate, perhaps. Like, do you think having that kind of background really gave you an advantage? And is that something you recommend other people pursue? Or what's your thought on that?
Well, first of all, real estate is definitely an expensive hobby. So if anybody's just thinking about getting in to maybe sell a house here and there and sure, get your license and do that, but you'll find out quickly it is a very expensive hobby. And if you're not putting an effort forth to build your business, to make connections, to know where your next deal is coming from, it will run you into the ground for sure. So that's my bit of hard advice to people that would want to do this business. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. I do other things, but I focus on real estate mainly. Having the construction background, absolutely. Being able to know what cedar siding is compared to cement board, or the type of roof, or I'm not an inspector, but I can tell if a window's failed, or that kind of thing. I think it's definitely an advantage for me when I go into a house and show people. I'm always looking around to find the flaws, when I have a buyer, and that way I can point it out to them, and they're aware of what's going on there. So.
And when you're working with someone like that, do you let them know that is part of your background? Like, have you found that makes them feel more comfortable to move forward with you as their real estate agent? Or, have you noticed anything like that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they definitely, most people trying to buy a home are frankly clueless on, what it entails to own a home, right? Especially if they're a first-time home buyer. They don't know about failing windows. They don't know about electrical that's not updated. They don't know about the foundation that's cracked, or whatever it might be. And they're relying on me to one, either steer them in the direction of a professional that may have that answer for them, an inspector, an electrician, or something like that, or being able to point it out directly to them as we're working together too. So.
Awesome. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, what was the process of like choosing your office? Because I know that you have somebody that, looks over your contracts, or if you have trouble with something, someone's in charge of helping you, basically.
Sure. Yeah. So every office is different. I'm working with my third office. I don't really believe that that's a bad thing to find the right fit. I started with Keller Williams, which is a very team-oriented type of office, where they like to build teams, and you have a team leader that, supplies you everything, supplies leads, kind of manages their team essentially. And then I moved to John L. Scott, where I was an individual agent. It was during a time where the real estate market was very electric during COVID. And I was able to do that on my own. I did hire somebody, a transaction coordinator. So basically somebody that did all my back end paperwork and managed all the emails and timelines and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So it was nice to be able to find that person. And Alex knows Janine. I think you dealt with Janine before. I don't know if you did or not when we got here in your house, but she just kept me in track, right? Like I could always rely on her to make sure everything was submitted on time and that kind of stuff. A lot of agents on their own, they handle all that business themselves. And then they have a designated broker in the office where they hang their license that makes sure that you're in compliance with everything that you're doing, because it's a risky business. There's a lot of risk for agents and sellers and buyers in a process of selling or buying a home.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I have one last question in the real estate world.
Sure.
As Alex mentioned earlier, these interest rates are pretty ridiculous at the moment. Some can take the risk and do these mortgage payments. Some can, it kind of hold them back. But what do you suggest to those that are trying to buy in this market? Do you suggest, I know you're not a lender, but have you noticed people doing 20% down to get rid of PMI, or some tricks to kind of help them with the payments? But yeah, that will be my last real estate question for you.
Yeah. So if you look at the history of interest rates, where we are right now historically is fairly low still. I mean, if you're looking back to the 80s when interest rates were in the 16, 17, 18%, I think the times where they were below 4% was an anomaly, where it's like, that may never happen again. It could have been a fluke thing during COVID, and however that worked out, it worked out well. People benefited from it and that sort of thing.
I should have bought more, huh?
I know I refied when I was, I have a lender friend that was like, you need to do it now. And we got a really low, like 2.175 or something like that, which was pretty incredible. And so I don't think that, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know, but in the near future, I don't think we'll ever hit that low again. I don't know what actually made that all happen. Like it just came and people took advantage of it, right? It was free money, basically lending for homes. And but if you look at the rates now, they're hovering around 6, a little bit high 5s. I think, like I said, historically, if you look at it, we're right on par with what interest rates should be. The prices were inflated as those houses, low interest rates are out there. So it balanced out, but the prices have come down a little bit and the interest rates have gone up, and it's balancing the market. I think right now, just saving money, being able to afford a down payment is really smart. Like you said about PMI, which is private insurance for your home. If you have 20% down, you don't have to pay the PMI, which will save you about $300 a month on your payment. And that's, in a monthly time, that's a lot of money. So, if you can get the money to put down on a house, that's great. There's fun ways to entice sellers to help you out. There's buy downs and that kind of thing, where a popular one right now is a 2-1 buy down, where you lock in a rate, maybe 6% for the first year. You pay 4% on that interest rate. For the second year, you pay 5%, and then on the third year, you're locked into that 6% for the remainder of the time, or refinance. And hopefully, things have changed by then. But there's lots of fun ways you can play with it.
I was going to say, I just heard recently in a different podcast, historically, these rates are really not that different than what we've seen historically. And it's also like, you're never going to find the perfect deal. And so even though rates may be low, that sort of incentivizes sellers to raise the value of the home. So you end up paying one way or another kind of around the same, right? It's kind of a push and pull, a balance of it. And I like that. I like your point about, there's opportunity now if you look for it, and if you can afford it, you can still get in. I'm curious, what do you think about cash? Because I know, like, with these rates being so scary to some people, do you think that cash is sort of an advantage to have in this market as a buyer?
I think cash is king for everything, right? And it allows people to close homes quickly. There's no risk involved, for a seller. If they have a cash buyer, they're not risking tying their property up for a month while the lending process is happening, and then having a deal fall apart, a week before closing or something like that. And then they have to relist the house and all that stuff. So sure, cash is definitely king. All in all, the seller is going to get their money regardless. It's just, what are you willing to, do in negotiation with an offer that comes in?
Right.
Right. The market is definitely on an uptick again. We see an increase of about 26% of lender applications going in. So, I think the stalemate of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? People are getting off the fence and actually, putting at least 1 foot forward to applying for the loan to see what they qualify for and such. So, inventory is still low, but as spring comes, that will rise, and it'll be just a normal market flow.
Right.
So.
Seasonality. Right. So I guess for anyone listening who is maybe thinking about getting into the real estate space, it sounds like there's opportunity, right? There's opportunity everywhere.
Sure.
And getting in there and having that conversation with an agent like yourself, with a lender, seeing what you can do with the money you have is a great first step. And I think a lot of new real estate, whether they're investors, whether they want to become agents, they maybe get overwhelmed by all these numbers and all this, input and fluxing, criteria in the market. I guess, would you say, in your experience, again, you do have that construction background, you are an agent. I don't know, are you kind of an investor too, or are you kind of sticking within the service routes of the real estate world?
I mean, I would definitely help other people invest. At this time, I'm not, investing for myself. I just raised 6 kids. I got 1 left at home. So I'm, feeling the ramifications of that financial, not a burden, but it was very expensive to raise 6 kids. And
absolutely, no sugarcoating that. Yeah.
No sugarcoating that. And, as we get older, yes, I want to have investment properties and stuff, and getting further down the road in this business. I see opportunities that pop up. I see how things can be worked in my advantage to be able to do that in the future, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very important to anyone listening who wants to pursue something in real estate is getting out there and getting the knowledge, talking to people, listening to podcasts like this. If you guys do have any questions, like, by all means, drop it in the chat or in the comment section of the YouTube video. Victor and I will be monitoring these. And if we can't answer a question, we're going to hit up Brock and be like, Brock, help us out with this. This person has this question, can you give us some tips?
Hey,
I want to kind of...
I'm happy to help.
There you go. And you're licensed in Washington, right?
Washington State. Yeah.
Washington State. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I want to quickly just try to switch over to another topic here.
Sure.
Kind of still in line with real estate, because I think one other thing that a lot of young entrepreneurs maybe face is this time management struggle, right? For example, you do so many things. And a lot of other people have full-time jobs. They have to take care of a family. They have all these responsibilities. How do you manage like the time to be a valuable player in real estate? Like, is it like a schedule calendar thing, or is it a mind shift thing, or what for you has been the best strategy?
Sure. So when I first got in, Alex was actually my very first client, and I got into real estate and I thought, oh gosh, I have this guy already wants to buy a house.
Wait, I was your first? I thought I was like your third.
No, you and Megan, I think we talked at that one show and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house. I remember the conversation, but yeah, And me not knowing anything, it took a while to get Alex dialed into what he really wanted and what he was affordable for him and what he could move on.
The price point was tough. Yeah. And I think I guess I lucked out then, because I feel like a more tenured agent would have been like, I'm not going to waste my time with this.
Totally.
With this newbie.
Like today, I wouldn't talk to you until that was all. Yeah.
But you love me, so you would,
I definitely learned a lot. It was a fun experience, man. It got me out into the city, was able to see a lot of homes, got some experience in that. And, like I said, that my first deal, I didn't close until like 7 or 8 months after I got my license. So this is a 100% commission. I'm pouring money into my license. I'm pouring money into like, classes and all that kind of stuff. So the expensive hobbies like adding up there, right? And if you don't continually work on this business, you're gonna not make it. Over the last couple of years, we saw a huge uptick of real estate agents jump in the market because they thought, oh, everybody's selling their house and everybody wants to buy a house. I'll just get my real estate license. And now that the market shifted, I mean, I took a huge, like, I didn't even know what to do. I was like, oh my gosh, it all of a sudden just stopped one day. Thank goodness I have other things that I do that supplement that income. But
right.
But you just got to focus on the real estate itself, or manifest it, because if you're not, you won't last. And I've made it over that 5-year hump, and I think I talked to most agents saying, if you can make it 5 years, you're good in the business. And some of those people that got their license last year probably aren't even going to be working in real estate this year or in the future, right?
So what does that time management part look like? Is that like you commit X number of hours each week to like keep up with the industry and going out with clients, or how does that work?
Yeah, definitely. This new company that I work for called Flux Real Estate, they're very tech oriented, which is something that I'm a little bit behind on, and I didn't focus on so much. But as the time advances, like every industry is going to be pushed towards tech, right? And we're going to be pigeonholed as real estate agents. When somebody can just grab their phone and swipe and buy a house, or pick an agent on their phone, I need to be on top of the list when they're looking for somebody. So yes, I sit and I manage my time. I try to keep my stuff organized. I wake up in the morning. I do my team meetings once a week, my trainings once a week. There's tons of videos that you can watch to sharpen your skill. And and then I show homes. So you gotta plug in time to meet with your clients and do listings and do pictures and do inspections and all that stuff. So time blocking is huge.
Cool. Something that came to mind really quick. So let's say somebody watching this, or somebody that Alex or myself referred over to you, what are the first steps that they need to take before, like, let's say you even give them a response, or like actually decide, all right, let's work together? Like what's your format there, I guess?
So I always inquire about if they've even talked to somebody about if they can afford a home, like how that looks, right? It's everybody has dreams. There's lots of people that want to buy houses and just don't know if they can afford it or not. So I would send them to a lender, or have them choose a lender, and not necessarily send them to the one that I work with, but whoever they feel comfortable with. And then we get a baseline of where we can start. That was one of the problems with Alex, is he had these big dreams of buying this mansion on the lake, and no, that's not true. But
I mean, that would be nice. That would be nice. I do still want that.
Yeah. So he was going, and me being experienced, he was going by what he felt he made annually and that kind of stuff. But that didn't tie down when he went to get pre-approved. It was a little bit less than what he thought.
Yeah. And I think that's huge for anyone listening. Like, it's one of those professions where you can't really dodge around the bullet, right? You have to actually holistically review where you're at financially and be honest with yourself, right? And so anyone who's listening who maybe wants to get into real estate investing or become an agent and be involved in the world, taking that holistic view, do you have the time to spend to do the research that you need to do? Do you have the capital that you need to put that first down payment down, right? Some of that stuff you won't find out until you go to a lender, but you can still yourself take a mental evaluation and be honest with yourself. Like if you can't afford to have a $2,000 a month mortgage because you're paying $1,200 in rent right now, like that's an honest question you have to have with yourself, a conversation, and decide what makes sense. Now, there are, of course, a variety of ways to do offers. I don't want to steer people away from getting into real estate. There's seller financing options. There's private money you can get into. If you're trying to get into some sort of flipping model, there's like DSCR loans, right? With their own different types of stipends and risks, of course. But the opportunities exist out there. It's just doing the research and right, Brock, am I on point there, or am I far off?
Yeah, you're totally on point, because I will never, with my clients, one of the top priorities is affordability. Would never want them to be house poor, right? I don't want them to be able to have a struggling monthly payment. I don't want them to be where they're regretting that they bought this home because they can't afford it or something like that. So that's one of the first things that we sit down and talk about is, okay, your lender said you're approved for $600,000. That looks like say it's a $2,500 a month payment, or $3,000 a month payment. Is that where you're comfortable with? Yeah, that's where we're comfortable with. Okay, so if we found a house for $620 and it moved your payment up to $3,200, could you afford that? Oh, no, I couldn't. That would be totally okay. So $3,000 is where we're at. And I really press that fact on people, because it is a priority. Like I've been in the situation where I've struggled to make our house payment, and it's tough and it's stressful, and that's not what I want to do in my business.
Right. So anybody who's listening to this, Brock, I'm curious, and maybe wants to get into real estate, whether it's to become an investor or to become an agent, and they have, let's just say, no previous experience. They've just been sold on some sort of pipe dream online, or they're listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to explore, what could I do in this industry? Where would you point them to get started in terms of education? Are there any resources out there that have been helpful to you that you think others could benefit from? Or people, or YouTube videos, or anything?
Yeah. So, honestly, if you're looking to invest, I would just talk to an agent and try and find out if they're involved in finding investment properties, flips and that kind of thing. So some agents don't do that. Some agents don't want to deal with that stuff, because oftentimes it's quick, it's can be messy, I think, and that kind of thing. And if you're trying to become an agent, I would maybe just go sit down, find a real estate brokerage that, maybe you have a friend that's a real estate agent, and just go sit down with someone in their office and just ask questions. Most of them, the ones I work for, have always been open to any person, looking to get into real estate, because obviously if there's more people, they're making more money, and, it's kind of a down the line scenario, right? So they want to help anybody that's interested in doing that. So
okay,
yeah,
well, that's reassuring. And I think I know from experience, when I was first trying to get into real estate, I would attend Redfin local events where they would have these educational seminars where an agent would talk about sort of how somebody can get started in the scene. And there's also great meetups online. There's great Instagram accounts. I actually follow some really great real estate investors, and they post videos on their Instagrams of them walking through rehab units and the work that they're doing. It's really insightful. And anyone listening, the more you immerse yourself into that culture, into that industry, and socialize with people who are doing this on the regular, you'll naturally begin to absorb sort of the knowledge from them and the information. At first, you'll hear words and you'll be like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And then over time, you'll get an understanding of it. And and start to get a better sense. I know we're I think we've done a lot of real estate talk here. I want to make sure we also dive into some of your other stuff.
Yeah, just ask questions. That would be the one main thing that I would say, is like there are so much information about real estate, whether it's the law or lending, inspections, all that stuff. Just ask questions, and I mean, most people are pretty eager to help you. So,
and especially with such a big investment and commitment, you kind of want to make sure you're confident with what you're getting into, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of your other stuff for a couple minutes here, because obviously you do a lot of things with your music festival, which is one thing I definitely want to talk about. Your background in music, and some of the other things you're working on. So, I guess maybe how can we segue this? Like, how does the real estate world tie you into music? Like, was there any? I mean, you and I met through music, right? Which was a connection, which was great. But tell me about the music experience. Tell me about the festival that you're doing, and how does that sort of fit into your ecosystem, your world of like activities?
Sure. So, days looked very different than when you and I met. As in terms of music wise, we got involved in the rave scene in Seattle. You're an amazing DJ. I love your music. Such a great guy too. But I'm
blushing.
Have been doing that for about 12 years. And in the last, like right before COVID, I've always been a Christian, but I've just kind of like dove a little more into my faith at that time before COVID, and just realized around Seattle there's not much Christian music like festival wise in this area. There's shows that come through town and that kind of stuff, but so my partner and I, who he's been in the business for a long time, producing shows. He works for Live Nation. He's runs the Gorge and all those festivals that we've done in the past. But him and I got together and looked at this as a real way to tap into this industry in this area. And so we created what we call Awakening Music Festival. It's a Christian music festival. As of now, it's one day. We had 6 artists last year. We narrowed it down to 5 this year. It's on April 28th in 2023 at the Shower Center in Kent. But it's just something that I've, like I said, I've really dove into my faith in the last few years, and I have just feel the need for something like this, and having the opportunity. One, because real estate was so good for me, I was able to afford to finance this thing and put it on. I don't know if you've rented a hockey arena and brought top tier Christian artist, or any artist for that matter, to a stage, but it's not a inexpensive venture, and we're really committed to making it happen. So
yeah,
it's fun.
That's great. Yeah, I remember you talking to me about that. I still have to check it out one day. You did the first one in Tacoma, I think, right? Or
at the Shower Center in Kent.
Oh, it was the same one. Okay.
Yeah. We're trying to just plan it in a place where it can be remembered and the foundation of it built. Like, our big picture goal is to take it out to the Gorge and break up all the raves out there with some Christian music.
There you go. Give the people something to cleanse the soul, after all their dubsteps and
with that beautiful view.
What's that?
With that beautiful view of the Gorge.
Oh gosh.
Oh, people would be having revelations out there.
Yeah. After our festival last year, I went out there with a pastor and a friend, and it was during Above and Beyond, their setup out there last year, and they let us on the property, and we just walked around and I just pitched my vision of like, this is where I want it to be. Like, it was a beautiful sunny day. We just walked around and talked about, making that happen, manifesting it. And I think that's what a lot of people need to do, is have an idea and a dream, and not give up on that. I mean, that's one thing. Growing up, I struggled in life with drugs and alcohol, and I got sober like 12 years ago. And ever since then, it's just like my life has just been reborn as like, I have so much potential and so many dreams that I want to grasp and move forward with. And one is real estate, one is raising my family, seeking God in everything I do. And then, now it's this music festival and something I wake up and who am I going to connect with today to spread the word about this thing? And
well,
every day.
Hopefully through this podcast, you reach some
Sure.
ears that need to hear your story. And I think I had a question about that too. How important, I mean, obviously in your life, it's been very important, but how important has like this personal connection to what you're doing? How important is that to the success of the project? I mean, you're doing this festival because of your religion and your faith, and you had this sort of rebirth, and it kind of stimulated this internal desire to do this thing. Like, is that common across all industries? Like, if you want to do real estate, do you have to have this passion to do it? Like, would you say that's a thing?
You definitely need a drive to do real estate, if that's where your question's leading to, is because it's a commission based payment. You're not getting paid weekly, monthly. Like I said, my first paycheck didn't come for 8 months after starting the industry. So I was, struggling financially in my home. I was married, fairly newly married. And, my wife was taking the load of our finances because I took this career change, and it made us struggle, and it made our marriage tough at times. And I'll tell you, when I'm making money, my wife was much happier. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's like they say, money can't buy you happiness, but everybody wants to find out for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. So it's really hard, and you definitely need a passion. You need something inside of you you can't be an introverted person. You have to be willing to go out of your way for people, to meet people, to, put yourself out there. I've really learned, even with this music festival, is I'll just ask until somebody literally says no, or, I always think that there's a chance, right? And I think that's a good way to think about things, because a lot of people just give up after one no. And it's just, persistence is the key to success.
I love that. It's like closed mouths don't get fed, right?
Right. Yeah.
If you don't knock, nobody can answer. You have to ask and ask and ask. And I think that some people get scared, they get turned off because they don't want the rejection, right? Or they are worried that they're going to get turned down.
Yeah. One story, I in my real estate business, I had sold a property for a guy early on in my business, and I started with a new CRM, which is like where we put all of our leads and our contacts and all that stuff. And it pops up like 10 a day. You need to call these 10 people a day. And this guy kept popping up on my list. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to say to this guy. I don't think he has anything. And I finally was like, you know what? And I just called him. John, how's it going? This is Brock. Yeah. What do you want? He's like an older dude, like old school Vietnam vet guy. What do you want? And then we just started talking, and he goes, you know what? I actually have a place that I want to sell up in Loomy Island, up in Bellingham. And it turned into that whole conversation.
Nice.
I was just feared of like, what am I going to say to this guy? But when I just got over that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just got another listing of, more business and stuff. So you just got to overcome that.
Time will tell. Time will tell. And asking the question as much as you can will get you an answer.
Absolutely.
So now you take a call whenever something comes up, you're like, I got to call this person, just see.
I got to call him. Exactly. I mean, Alex's name's popped up a few times, but I just, I don't think he's ready for anything yet. And I hope that he would call me back.
Yeah. I'd be filling out that form. I'd be like, broccoli cheddar.
Yes, that's right.
Well, cool. Hey, Brock, I want to be respectful of time here.
Sure.
And we've been kind of talking for a little while. Victor, do you have any more questions for Brock? I think I'm kind of out on my list.
I don't, but the number one thing that I learned here is have a pre-approval letter before talking to Brock. So
yes.
Absolutely.
I got from this. I'm ready.
Well, you don't have to have them before we talk, but I'm going to steer you in the direction of getting one before we start working together. Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's important for anybody that's trying to buy a home right now.
Yeah, I was just in Galveston, Texas. We're about to buy a triplex out there, and we had the same conversation with our agent out there. So we got private funding, but it was very much the same conversation of, oh, hey, let's make sure that your finances are good to go before we get going.
Yeah.
So
because nobody wants to get to the end game and have it fall apart and everybody be embarrassed, and it's just a mess, and it's it's not fun at that point, and you're wasting people's time. If you can't afford to put a festival on an island, then you probably shouldn't.
And Fire, is that a Fire Fest reference?
Fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or if you can't pay your people, oh, is that too soon?
Yeah. That's
all right. Well, thank you, Brock. This has been.
Hey, you bet, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, wait, Brock, before you go, do you have anything you'd like to promote to the listeners? Like maybe if somebody wants to work with you once they have their pre-approval letter, of course.
Yeah.
Or how can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can definitely connect with me. Obviously you can call me. You can look me up. brocksabo.fluxre.com is my website. 425-600-6128 is my business line number. And check out awakeningnw.com and look at our festival too. It's coming up here in April.
I gotta come check it out. I'm excited.
Yeah, it'd be fun to have you out there.
Yeah,
let's do it. We could stage dive together.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Brock.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Nice. I'm gonna keep the recording going because I gotta talk with Victor on the recording for a second. But thank you, Brock, for being here.
Yes, thank you for your time. I know it's very valuable, so thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'll let you know, like when we have the video edited and posted. It's gonna be on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and stuff like that.
Okay, I'd love to put it on my social media and stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you the link to it. Yep.
Cool.
Probably like a week. It'll take like a week to get it uploaded and stuff.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right. Thanks, man. Bye.
Have a good one.